Actually, I'm not sorry.
I was loud and pushy and questioned why only the men spoke. Hey, how you doing? My name is Bev Ditsie, and this is For the Culture.
Okay, white is okay, right? Because I decided I was going to do alternatives in case white is not okay.
My mom was a musician. And for many years in my life, I thought that I would be a musician, that I would be a performer on stage. You know how we kind of follow our heroes, our folks. And my mom was like my hero. And so I started acting at the early age, I think 9. I was on TV. But I think it's also very interesting how very few South Africans know that.
That you were a child actor?
Not just a child actor. I was the first child actor on television in this country. My mom was the first Black woman presenter in this country. Did a show on the free market system and literally teaching people about capitalism. And then they cast me because I was there with her. She'd take me everywhere with her. And I got cast as a boy on this drama show. And I was in my element. It was probably my happiest place because not only was I being seen as neither boy nor girl, although I was acting as a boy, I was being affirmed. I was my boisterous boy self, loved every second of it. And I stayed in TV until I was about 13. Around that time, though, I was also coming into my own in terms of my sexuality. I mean, I'm in my early teens, puberty's hitting. So now all of a sudden, I can't do boy roles as well because now the babies are doing things, and now I'm wearing bigger and bigger jackets. It was a bit of a crisis. And then, of course, finding that there's a word called gay, and that related to me, and I'm not an anomaly. That means that there's a community of other people out there. And then people were telling me God hates me, and I can't be gay. What is this? It's un-African. And Bev the activist was born. Because I said, fuck that. Fuck that. According to whom? And why? And I've been blessed that I was not only affirmed at home, just in terms of my gender identity or my gender identitylessness.
Please tell Nicole to answer her phone. Someone's going to call her.
I was always affirmed, and I'd ask questions, and my activism was born of questioning everything around me and realizing that most of it is a lie. But I do think that it's meeting some gay boys in my area, and they're the ones who knew about that first meeting that was to be held at Wits with these group of people. And when, I was there when Glow was born, when that name was formed, and when we actually decided that we are formalizing this organization. I was 17 by then. There was a time when I'd go to Glow meetings and Glow things where I'd be the only Black woman identifying at the time. Because there were all these white lesbians, and there was lots of gay men, gay boys, and someone said, well, I mean, we are all representing. No, you're not. Because it's assumed that only white women can be lesbians and only Black men can be gay, and we don't exist. And that's how I ended up kind of being where I am. That's how the first Pride March, that speech happened.
Why do we have to fight for the right to love who we want to love? This is about time, and today we're making history. And thank you very much all for being here. We're all very proud of you.
Media, of course, is swarming. I was always, in front of the cameras speaking about what it is to be a Black lesbian in the townships and growing up in Soweto and all of that. Being in the limelight as a very young person was awesome. It's nice to be recognized in the streets. Coming out was a different kind of being recognized. Because all of a sudden I wasn't, oh, yeah, this kid on TV. It was, oh, this is this person. That person. That one. It was a different type of visibility now, because now all of a sudden people are looking at me and they with like a foulness, with a, and that wasn't nice. And so there was a lot of hatred. What I didn't expect was the violence. I didn't expect the threats. I didn't expect people to literally want to kill me.
Make this a conference for all women, regardless of their sexual orientation.
So by the time the opportunity arrived for us to address the main United Nations conference, Mandela had just kind of, become president of the country. This was the first country in the world where the president was speaking about non-discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. It just made perfect sense that it would be me making that speech. I didn't know at the time that, once again, I was first. I didn't know. So it took me by surprise when I finished speaking and walked out, and there was worldwide media around me. Like, I was in shock. I think if you see the footage, I think my last film, Lesbians Free Everyone from 2020, you see, I'm standing there like this. And somebody says, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to be the first lesbian to ever address the United Nations? Like, huh? What's interesting, though, is that by the time I turned 24 and I did the United Nations and that level of worldwide visibility happened, all of a sudden I felt safer. The more visible I became, the safer I got. To a point where even the guys in the street, sometimes I don't even know if it's the same guys who are coming to my house to come and try and rape or kill me. They would say, hey, this one is strong. You stand up for your shit, when people were shaking my hand, you put our neighborhood on the map at the UN, and people were shaking my hand. People I would have never expected to shake my hand. It got to a point where even when I was being threatened in the neighborhood, there are people who would come out and say, don't touch that one. But to stay in that space, that hyper visibility also meant hyper awareness. Because everywhere I went, I knew that if the minute somebody recognized me, anything can happen. It could pop off any moment. And so it was self-preservation for me to step back. It became necessary on so many different levels. One, I started asking myself, who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose outside of my activism? Because it started becoming all of me. My entire identity became this activist, this rah-rah person who's always the angry Black lesbian. It became all of me, to a point where I lost me. I lost my joy. I lost my fun. I wanted to get back to that 9-10-year-old boy Bev who was gutsy and playful and roller skated all over the place and didn't care if you think I'm a boy or a girl. I didn't care, I loved me. I remember that. And I think, in life, a lot of us, by the time we get to our mid-20s, we are searching. We're trying to figure out, who am I, where am I going, what's my career?
Yes, I do. That's why we said pleasant.
I don't remember a definite moment where I said, oh, I'm going to go back to TV. But I started working with this producer guy who just needed somebody to assist him. And he would travel with a camera person. He'd get gigs for the SABC. And I remember traveling with him And he would walk away and the camera guy would kind of figure himself out. And so I would kind of go, how about you shoot it like this? How about you shoot it like that? How about you shoot it like this? And started getting into the groove. And because it was always just the one camera guy and we traveled with him a lot, he started kind of now depending on me to say, okay, this is the story we're wanting to tell with this one. So shoot it like this, shoot it like that, put the camera over here. Oh my, look at this shot, you know? And the more I did that, the more it became very clear that I am directing. From working with him and going into the edit suite and now telling the editor, actually the intention with this shot was that it was going to follow that shot and that one and that one. And I started putting stories together. So by the time I got into the first reality TV show, Live Wire Communites, when that was done, I spoke to the producers and said, can I work behind the scenes? I need to learn. That's where I started learning reality TV. And in the process, from the edit to the scripting to the writing of the format, you know, that's where I started learning it and started doing all these smaller jobs with different production companies. And around that same time, while editing something else, a music video director, producer called Leanne Cox said, I need an assistant. And Kwaito was just popping off. Boom. I end up assisting Leanne through styling, through music videos, to a point where I became a music video director and did quite a few for a while. So, you know, when they talk about like the culture of Kwaito, I was part of the Kwaito culture behind the scenes. Some of the most magical moments of my life. So by the time Simon and I then comes up, there was a book launch, and I remember somebody saying something like, well, Glow is just a social organization and Simon Nkodi is just a social butterfly with no political impact. Ooh.
Out of the closet, into the street. Out of the closet, into the street. Out of the closet, into the street. And harass those ones inside.
When I heard that he was just a social butterfly with no political impact, I immediately knew that if there's no intervention, that is a narrative that's going to stay. And so I was so furious that my mind exploded. I remember going to one of my other producer friends, Nikki Newman, and saying, I'm burning. There's a story I need to tell. His name is Simon Nkodi. I need to make this film. Because if I don't actually give him his props and say this was this guy, he's going to be known in the margins, in the periphery as just a social butterfly. And I cannot let that happen. And so Nikki started asking me questions, you know, so who was he? It's like, yeah, he was this guy, he was this political activist, he was on the Delmas treason trial, he comes out, he influences top brass of the ANC while he's there, you know, he's the founder of Glow, he came up with the ideals of pride and, you know, all of those things, and he was my mentor. And Nikki said, right. Start writing that. That's a great story. We're going to tell that story. It took about 4 years. Once Simon and I kind of happened on also a big kind of global scale, boom. Then it kind of opened up the work for me as a director, both documentary and reality TV. Always kind of been parallel, making documentary and reality TV shows, documentary, reality TV. Being in the first reality TV and seeing how I was depicted, seeing the manipulation sometimes, depending on who was the camera guy, I would be shot differently depending on what narrative they're trying to tell. Remember, there was like all kinds of racial issues in there. And so I was very aware of how stories are told. And so by the time I got into reality TV, one of the things that I was very adamant about is I am going to do reality TV, do it well, and treat people with kindness and respect. Everyone that sits in front of my camera gets and deserves my respect, no matter who they are.
We haven't haven't met this baby, our bestie's baby. And so she's video calling with the baby on the phone. It's a pleasant phone call.
Beverly Ditsie, because you reside in a long lineage of leaders who have shown that civil rights must begin as human rights. Because you have stared down threats to your own well-being in your commitment to social justice. Because you have blended artistry with activism in order to raise awareness and create social change. Upon the recommendation of the faculty and with the approval of the Board of Trustees of Claremont Graduate University, we confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, with the rights and privileges appertaining thereto.
I could have never imagined my life as is now. I feel like I'm back to being that 10-year-old, you know, that is full of joy and full of life. I am married to a most incredible woman. I could have never imagined that. I'm blessed in every way. So what's next for me? Right now, I'm just seeking my joy. For the longest time, I lived for everybody else but me. And I am now in a place where I'm okay to be a bit selfish and to seek my joy. I am also making a film on Mom. Her story needs to be told. She was a big superstar in this country for the longest time, and the fact that she doesn't even get mentioned is painful. Meanwhile, she was part of shaping the culture at one of the most repressed times in South Africa's history in the 70s. She was huge. Her story deserves to be told. And my intention is to tell the story while she's still alive so that she can get her flowers while she's still alive. And so, you know, God willing, with all the stars aligning, it's happening. It is.
I'm sorry, oh, sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry.